The girl came to the man, who was her childhood friend, and having thrown off her clothes, remaining in her shirt, begged him to take her before anyone else. The young man, calling the girl Mistress Sanita, could not say a word more. As a child, he called her Nida, and if he soothed her when she cried, Nady. These song-like names he gradually stopped saying. They played together, then spent their free time after practicing and sewing, and eventually became complete strangers to each other. The young man became a knight in the king's service and could only address the princess as mistress. She went from his shameless childhood friend to the daughter of the monarch he serves. Remaining with the other knights, he often saw her in the second-floor window of the palace. Most often, she was practicing embroidery. Their childhood memories still lingered in their minds for a long time, and they did not want to part with them. And then one day, the king announced that he had found a groom for his daughter and ordered the knights and servants to go to the temple and determine the date of the happy wedding day. Sanita's groom was a feudal lord from a neighboring country, a man nearly 20 years older than she was. Perhaps this was the reason for her eternal sadness, and the fact that this night she came to him personally. The young man asked Mrs. Sanita to follow orders and turned away. The girl clasped her hands together and said that she was doing so for him to defile her body, but apparently he did not want to tarnish the honor of the monarch he serves. The knight only continued to call her Mistress Sanita, to which she told him to never call her Needy again. Now, not even when she cries. That night, Sanita stood on the doorstep for a while, and then quietly left without a word from her childhood friend. The next day, the princess went to pray at the holy place and stood in a circle of huge stones, which are monuments dedicated to the gods. The nun prayed for the princess in front of her subjects, and her words were as follows: Goddess who protects innocent virgins, goddess of love and passion, goddess of summer and fertility, Ein. Bless this girl, Sanita. Give her strength to overcome hardships, and give her a life filled with love. Goddess, with you are life and death, light and dark, happiness and adversity. Give her the strength to make the right choice. The knight looked at the princess from the crowd and thought about the fact that it would not be long before Sanita would travel to a neighboring state to be married. The girl bowed to signify the end of her prayer, and when she stood up, met her childhood friend's gaze and immediately turned away. From that night until now, she had avoided him. All the while he wondered what he should have done that night. The fact that he couldn't possess her was completely independent of that feudal lord. And to him, Sinead was dearer than the king himself, who sacrificed her. As he watched her walk away, he wished her to be happy. After all, if he let his own desires get in the way, he would tarnish her honor, and that would make her unhappy, and he would not be able to forgive himself. He still could not tell her these words that were in his heart. On the contrary, refusal by such an explanation might have hurt her even more. So he thought he had done the right thing. Sanita had always been a proud and lofty girl. When they were little and weaving amulets together, Nady had said that she loved most of all when everyone celebrated the day of the goddess Ain. The boy answered her that it might seem impertinent to many, since compared to Danu or Morion, the goddess of earth and wisdom, and the goddess of war and vengeance, the princess loved Ain more. The girl replied that the goddess Danu was gracious, and the goddess Morion was fierce, but the goddess Ain had both qualities. The girl led her friend into a room and opened before him a book in which was written about the gods. According to legend, the goddess of love, Ain, married a man and produced 3 fairies. One day, a king, seduced by the goddess' charms, tried to take her by force, and then the goddess bit off his ear. Since long ago, the king and queen must be close to the goddesses. So the king who lost one ear also lost his power and thus had to leave the throne. The knight prayed to the goddess of fertility, Earth, Ain, who protects defamed girls, to bless Sanita. He brought an amulet from home that they had woven as children, and all alone returned to the monuments. He asked for life and death, light and darkness, happiness and adversity, so that he and Sanita would always have the strength to bear all hardships and make the right choice. Suddenly, as he climbed over the hill, the young man froze with shock, for the princess was standing in the middle and was trying to stab himself with a dagger. He grabbed her hand and pressed her palm so that the knife popped out of her palm. The girl tried to break free and screamed for him to let her go. The knight asked the princess to calm down and asked what made her do such a thing. Zenaida told him to mind his own business because he was probably doing it for her father, and all because if someone defiled her body, her father wouldn't be able to sell her for a bargain. But after being refused, she decided to cut her life short. The knight grabbed the princess by the shoulders and pulled her against him. Finding herself in a strong embrace, Zenaida immediately calmed down. The young man told the princess that she didn't know at all what thoughts were in his head. That night, and at this very moment, he desired her. Unable to bear it, the knight kissed the princess and, seized by passion, possessed her, pressing her against one of the stones. Afterward, they embraced for a long time, and the young man said that he had often dreamed how that night he had nevertheless abused her and asked if she would have bitten off his ear in such a case. Nady cried bitterly, never answering his question. A couple days later, Zenaid left to get married. In every step of the departing horse carrying the princess's carriage, the knight put a prayer. Life and death, light and darkness, happiness and adversity, give Zenaida the strength to make the right choice. Standing in line with the other soldiers, the young man kept thinking about the night she came to him. One of his comrades told him that of course it was hard for him to let his childhood friend go to another country knowing that they would never see each other again. But she was a princess, and he should accept it. She's a princess, but she's still a girl, and she can't be free to live her life as she pleases. Unless she's a goddess,